Someone asked me a question recently that seemed simple on the surface. Why do so many YouTubers make those ridiculous faces on their thumbnails? You know the ones. Mouth wide open, eyes like they've just seen a ghost, eyebrows somewhere near the ceiling, the expression of a person who has apparently just discovered that water is wet and is devastated by the news. I started answering and realized about 2 sentences in that the real answer had nothing to do with thumbnails. It had everything to do with how attention gets harvested, why most of us hand it over without thinking, and why the people who refuse to play that game are quietly building something far more valuable than the people with the best shocked faces. So that's what this episode is about. Not YouTube. Attention. What it's worth, how it gets stolen, and what you do with yours. Let's start with the obvious question. Why do they do it? The short answer is because it works. And not just a little. Creators who have tested calm, composed thumbnails against gaping mouth version consistently find that the ridiculous face gets more clicks. This isn't a hunch or a creative instinct. This is A/B tested, data confirmed, algorithm validated behavior. The platform gives creators direct feedback on which thumbnails perform, and the feedback is unambiguous. They are not making those faces because they think it looks dignified. They are making those faces because the numbers told them to. The data demanded the stupidity. Now here's where it gets interesting. The specific expression they are all imitating, mouth open, eyes wide, pure theatrical shock, is not random. It mimics what psychologists call peak emotional arousal. It signals on a primal level that something significant just happened and you weren't there for it. Your brain interprets it as a social alarm. Someone in your immediate environment just reacted strongly to something. That means you might be missing information that's relevant to your safety, your status, or even your survival. Yes, your ancient primate brain reads a YouTube thumbnail the same way it would read a panicked tribesman running toward you. Fight, flight, or click. The technical term for why this works is emotional contagion. You unconsciously mirror the expressions you see before your conscious mind has processed what you are looking at. The face produces a flicker of the emotion before you decided whether the emotion is warranted. The shock registers in your nervous system before your judgment gets a vote. By the time your rational brain catches up and says, wait, this is probably a video about someone reacting to a pizza, your finger is already moving. And layered on top of that is what behavioral researchers call the curiosity gap. The shocked face implies a strong reaction to something you haven't seen yet. Your brain hates unresolved loops. It wants to closure. So you click. Not because you have consciously decided the content is worth your time, but because your nervous system has been briefly hijacked by a face that cost someone about 4 seconds to make in Photoshop. This is not stupidity on the part of the viewer. The response happens faster than conscious thought. That gap between stimulus and awareness is exactly what gets exploited. And it gets exploited because it works on almost everyone, including people who consider themselves media literate. Here's what makes this particularly corrosive as a strategy over time. It works. So everyone does it. And because everyone does it, you have to do it more to stand out. The faces get more extreme. The errors get bigger, the color saturation goes up, the text gets more urgent, because the baseline keeps moving, and you are always optimizing against the last version of normal. This is not a bug in the system. It's how the algorithm selects. The platform rewards clicks. Thumbnails drive clicks. Escalation follows as naturally as water running downhill. Nobody decided to make it this way. It emerged from thousands of individual rational decisions, each one locally sensible and collectively corrosive. You see the same dynamic in tabloid headlines getting louder every year, in political ads getting more outrageous every election cycle, in breaking news chyrons that describe routine events with the visual language of catastrophe. The medium selects for escalation because escalation gets attention. And in all of these ecosystems, attention is the product being sold. What almost nobody talks about is that many of the creators doing this hate it. There are long interviews with popular YouTubers who describe the exact moment they realized they had to just do the face because they tested not doing it. And the numbers dropped, and the algorithm punished them for having standards. They felt stupid doing it. Some of them still feel stupid doing it. But the alternative was watching years of work slowly stop reaching people. So they kept doing it, and they kept refining it, and they got better at it, and they still hate it. This is not a creative strategy. That is a trap with a subscribe button. Now, here's the part that actually matters. Everything I just described assumes that all attention is equivalent, that a click is a click, that the only metric worth optimizing for is volume, and you reach maximum volume by any means necessary. That assumption is wrong. The same psychology that makes the shocked face work on most people also make it actively repel a specific segment of the audience. These are the people who have trained themselves, consciously or thought accumulated frustration, to evaluate the packaging of information before engaging with it. They see a gaping mouth and a pointing finger, and their first reaction is not curiosity. It's suspicion. Their brain runs a fast background check. Low quality framing, probably not worth the time, keep moving. The tabloid sits at the newsstand, and the thumbnail gets scrolled past. And here's the critical insight that almost no one talks about. That segment is not a problem. That segment is the most valuable audience that exists. These are the people who think before they act, who required a real argument before they change their minds, who do not buy on impulse and do not stay subscribed out of inertia. When they follow you because you actually gave them something that held up under their own scrutiny. When they trust you because you earned it without manipulating them into it. When they recommend you to someone else, they mean it because their own credibility is attached to the recommendation. That audience is smaller. It is also dramatically more loyal, more engaged, and more likely to actually do something real with what you say to them. They don't forget you after the next thumbnail because they didn't arrive through a thumbnail. They came because the argument was worth their time. And arguments that are worth your time are not abundant. When you find source of them, you return, don't you? You don't get that audience with a shocked face. You lose them with a shocked face. So, what do you do instead? Because opting out of manipulation theater is not a strategy by itself. You still need to get people to stop scrolling long enough to realize you are worth their attention. The answer is intellectual tension instead of emotional manipulation. The shocked face is trying to accomplish one thing: make you feel like you're missing something. That's the entire trick. Manufactured urgency compressed into a single image. The good news is that FOMO, Fear of missing out is not the only way to stop scroll or earn a second to look. It is just the cheapest and the laziest. Contradiction works harder and lasts longer. When someone encounters a statement that holds two things that seem like they shouldn't both be true, their brain engages in a completely different way. Not the low-grade panic of potentially missing out, the more durable itch of problem that needs to be resolved. How can both of these things be true? What am I misunderstanding? I need to know how this works. That is a different quality of attention entirely. It activates reasoning rather than bypassing it, and you can produce it without looking like someone just told you the sky exists. Specificity does the same job from a different angle. Vague claims need emotional amplification because they have nothing else to stand on. The louder the phrase, the emptier the promise usually is. Precise, counterintuitive claims don't need amplification. They carry their own weight. If I tell you that most security plugins make your WordPress site less safe, I don't need a shocked face to hold your attention. The claim is specific enough and unexpected enough to do that work on its own. If it's true, it matters to you. If it might be true, you want to find out. The face is unnecessary. The face would actually undermine it. And there is one more thing working in your favor when everyone else is performing visual panic. Stillness. The composed, direct present that says, I have something worth saying, and I don't need to perform to get you to hear it. In a landscape of escalating theatrical shock, calm is the pattern interrupt. It reads as confidence. It reads as someone who doesn't need your click badly enough to embarrass themselves for it. That is, counterintuitively, more compelling than the desperation it replaces. And it self-selects. The audience that responds to it is the audience that doesn't respond to panic. The alignment between how you show up and who shows up is not an accident. It is a consequence. I'll be direct about who this episode is and isn't for. It is not for the creators making the faces. They have their numbers, their optimization cycles, and their race to the bottom, and they are welcome to all of it. They are not my audience, and they are not my concern. This episode is for you, the person listening right now. If you have made it this far, you already belong to the audience I've been describing. You didn't arrive because someone looked panicked. You are here because you wanted an actual argument and you stayed because the argument held. That means you already have the most important filter. You evaluate the packaging before you trust the content. The question worth asking is whether you're applying that filter consistently, not just to YouTube thumbnails, which are easy to dismiss, but to the subtler versions, the urgent email designed to feel like an emergency, the shareable outrage in your feed calibrated to make you feel morally obligated to react, the headline that is technically accurate and completely misleading at the same time. The manipulation mechanics are identical across all of them. The face is just the most visible, the most honest in its crudeness about what it is doing. So here is what I want you to take from this. Start noticing the packaging separately from the content. Not to become cynical and dismiss everything, but to create a brief, deliberate gap between the stimulus and your response. Long enough to ask one question. Am I engaging with this because it's worth my attention, or because someone engineered it to feel that way? That gap is where your judgment lives. Most people never create it because the whole system is designed to prevent it. The ones who do are harder to manipulate, clearer in their thinking, and considerably more difficult to sell something that doesn't hold up under scrutiny. In my experience, that last part is worth protecting. Think before you act, and see you next week.